On May 22, 2021, high school senior Kennedy Little Dyke decided to take an evening ride up a mountain and admire a beautiful sunset from there. The girl had recently broken up with her boyfriend and she was trying to get a little distraction. In the company of two classmate friends, Kennedy got behind the wheel of her car and the three of the guys went on a trip. All three of them wanted to just relax, but no one could even imagine that a seemingly ordinary, hour-long drive would become fatal, both for Kennedy herself and for the two friends. The company was on their way to enjoy the marvelous scenery. And now look what happened. It's unlikely you've ever seen anything like it. The town of Dekla in Idaho is a small town with a population of only 338, but the entire micro-town is one high school. Kennedy Little Dyke was a senior at that school in May 2021. On May 19th, Kennedy had a breakup with her boyfriend. She saw him kissing another girl, which caused the breakup. In addition, Kennedy's father was diagnosed with cancer, and she found herself severely depressed. The girl felt depressed, and trying to recover from the heartache, she tried to distract herself in various ways. To make it easier for Kennedy to cope with negative thoughts, two close friends, Nakia Moline and Jake Brasmussen, tried to support her. After a couple of days, the trio decided to unwind and go to the nearest mountain, as their town was only 15 minutes away from the long mountain system. Evening time was chosen for this event, as some of the locals go up to the mountain to watch the evening sunset or even to watch the sunrise. On the evening of May 22, 2021, Kennedy, Nakia, and Jacob got into the girl's car and drove to the foot of a local mountain. It had only been 2 days since Kennedy had broken up with her boyfriend and she wasn't feeling mentally well. However, it seemed that the trip out of town had done her some good. The guys reached their destination safely and sat nicely in the car, seeing off the sun with their eyes. On the way back, the trio decided to continue the meeting. The friends went to visit Kennedy. There were only a few kilometers and about 10 minutes of driving to the girl's house. On the road, the guys talked about different things. Kennedy's friend asked a question about her ex-boyfriend. Suddenly, the driver girl's emotions took over. Sitting behind the wheel, she began to sob as the emotional wounds were still deep. Friends suggested that Kennedy stop at the curb and calm down. But further events happened very suddenly and quickly. At sobbing Kennedy in the eyes all darkened. In a matter of moments, she lost control of the car, and at a speed of 93 kilometers per hour, the car drove into the road telephone pole. After the colossal collision, the car flipped over several times and all three friends were thrown outside as none of them were wearing seatbelts. The accident threw Kennedy Little Dyke out of the cabin with such force that she flew up in the air and ended up suspended 9 meters high on an electrical cable. A local resident who witnessed the nightmarish incident dialed an emergency number. Before the girl could realize it, she was already hanging upside down. Hanging from the cable, the unfortunate Kennedy felt her arm being torn off. It was held together only by her skin, but the sight was far worse. Her thigh was hanging right in front of her face. By some miracle, her femoral artery had been pinched by an electrical cable, and after a massive electric shock, the radial artery in her arm had actually been cauterized. This prevented a large amount of blood from being lost. The girl was hanging in an extremely uncomfortable position. In fact, a broken limb thrown over a cable held her aloft and prevented her from falling. All this time, Kennedy was conscious. She was crying, feeling completely helpless and not knowing what to do in this situation. Her cell phone was lying in a field somewhere. Kennedy thought this was the end. Meanwhile, services, firefighters, ambulance, and police arrived at the scene. The first responders also found the girl's friends lying next to the auto. Nakia was unconscious and Jacob was bleeding but conscious. The young men were promptly sent to the hospital for further medical attention. The rescuers cut the power, and then they removed Kennedy from the cable, pulled her leg with a tourniquet and placed her body on a stretcher. The girl ended up hanging upside down for an hour. Kennedy was airlifted by airplane to the State Medical University. The extent of her injuries forced doctors to strip her of a limb. The news that she would lose her entire leg came as a surprise, at least for a while. But after 20 minutes, the girl got over it and her attitude was quite positive. In fact, the doctors tried to save as much of her leg as possible. But because of the infection, they had to remove more and more of the limb. Her left arm was also severely damaged along with the nerves inside. Throughout this time, Kennedy underwent 21 surgeries. After this nightmare, she faced a long recovery therapy. The girl says that walking on a prosthesis is uncomfortable because it takes a lot of energy. But with all that said, she tries to live the most fulfilling life possible. Greg Plitt was an American actor, fitness model, and video blogger. The man started his career with fitness. After becoming a personal trainer, Plitt went to live in Los Angeles, where he conducted personal training. A little later, the man developed his own 28-day training program. His program stimulated both fat burning and muscle mass gain. The athlete repeatedly compared his training programs to the training programs of soldiers. Subsequently, Greg Plitt became the face of a perfume company. He also starred in television commercials and in several movies, though mostly in cameo roles. At 4 o'clock in the afternoon, on January 17, 2015, 37-year-old Greg Plitt participated in the filming of a commercial for energy drink. The filming took place in the city of Burbank, in the state of California. According to the plot of the commercial, Greg had to drink the advertised product, after which the energy drink will make the consumer Superman, a man with enormous energy able to outrun a train moving at full speed. However, during the filming of the commercial, something went wrong. Greg and his two-man crew planned to shoot a take right on the railroad tracks in front of the actual train. The plan was to place the video cameras in such a way that the fitness model and the train would move on the neighboring tracks, and the viewers on the screens would think that the slab was actually running away from the train. At the moment the camera turned on to record, Greg Plitt was standing on the railroad tracks. He was shirtless, assumed a sprinter's pose, and paid no attention to the train's horn, which had been sounded 10 seconds earlier. After that, the man ran sharply, but apparently only in the process of filming the shot, he realized that everything was not going according to plan and that the train was on the tracks where he was running himself. A few seconds later, Greg rushes at breakneck speed, but suddenly the train catches him and he falls on the tracks. This whole situation happened in an instant. According to eyewitnesses, the man tried to escape from the tracks at the last moment, but did not have time to do so. Immediately after the incident, traffic on the line was suspended. The video from the shooting and the actual footage was seized by the police. All publications with the alleged recording of the last seconds of Greg Plitt's life are nothing more than fakes, according to the testimony of the film crew. It became clear that Greg simply misjudged the situation and did not bounce aside in time. Already later, his friend noted that Plitt had made more than 1,000 parachute jumps in his life. Yes, he liked to take risks, but he always took a very responsible approach. He wasn't an adventurer who just didn't care about his life. He was an extreme sportsman who knew a lot about what he was doing. It was later revealed that the filming was done without any authorization. Also, some will ask, how is it possible not to realize that a train is coming right behind you? But railroad officials claimed that commuter train systems always warn people when a train is approaching. However, in that particular spot, there was a so-called blind curve, when it was really hard to tell from the side whether the train was traveling on the neighboring tracks or was coming right behind you. The neighboring tracks were indeed free that day, but Greg Plitt ran on the other tracks by mistake.